I thought I knew my children. I thought I knew every heartbeat that echoed in this house, every secret tucked behind their smiles. But that belief shattered the day the plumber came. He wasn't supposed to find anything. He was just fixing a leak in the basement. Yet what he discovered down there changed everything I thought I understood about love, trust, and the people I had raised. That morning began like any other. The sun filtered softly through the kitchen curtains, the smell of coffee lingered in the air, and the house felt ordinary, safe. My children, grown now, both in their 30s, were upstairs bickering lightly about something trivial. I smiled to myself, thinking how some things never changed. In my mind, they were still the two little faces I used to tuck in every night. But as the plumber descended into the basement, that fragile illusion of normalcy began to crack. He called out my name, his voice uncertain. "Ma'am, you might want to see this." Something in his tone made my stomach twist. I walked down those creaking wooden steps, expecting maybe mold, maybe a burst pipe, maybe a nest of rats. But it wasn't any of that. It was something far worse, something human. Something deliberate. I can still remember the way the air felt heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. The light from his flashlight flickered over a pile of boxes, stacked too neatly, too precisely. He moved one aside, then another, and then there it was. I froze. My heart began to hammer so hard I thought I might faint. I won't say what it was, not yet, because even now, when I close my eyes, I still can't believe it was real. It wasn't the kind of thing a mother ever expects to find associated with her children, the kind of thing that forces you to question every bedtime story, every hug, every proud moment you've ever had. In that instant, I realized something chilling. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones capable of hiding the darkest truth. What shook me wasn't just the discovery, it was their reaction. When I called them down, expecting fear or guilt, I saw neither. My daughter's eyes darted toward my son's as if they had been caught in a pact. My son simply said, "You shouldn't have come down here, Mom." And the way he said it, calm, cold, almost protective of what was hidden there, made me realize I didn't really know them at all. That was the moment I stopped being just a mother. I became a stranger in my own home. I didn't call the police. I didn't even ask them to explain, not right away. Because when your children are standing before you and everything you thought you knew about them is collapsing, the mind goes blank. The heart breaks first, logic comes later, and somewhere between the breaking and the silence, I felt the weight of every decision I had ever made as a parent pressing down on me. What were they hiding? Why would they lie to me, to each other, to themselves? What did I miss? In the minutes that followed, I realized this wasn't just about what they had done. It was about what I had ignored for years. The signs, the whispers, the secrets I brushed aside because I wanted to believe my family was different. But families aren't destroyed in a single moment. They crumble slowly, piece by piece, until one day a stranger in a uniform walks into your basement and shows you the truth you've been too afraid to see. And that's exactly what happened to me. If anyone had asked me what happiness looked like 15 years ago, I would have said this house. A modest 2-story brick home on the edge of town, nothing fancy, but filled with laughter, Sunday breakfasts, and the kind of noise that only love can make. I bought it with my late husband, Daniel, back when the children were small. We built everything from scratch. The swing set in the backyard, the vegetable patch that never really grew anything except stubborn weeds, and the basement Daniel swore he'd turn into a game room someday. He never did. Life got busy. Then he got sick. After he passed, that basement became nothing more than a storage room. Boxes of old Christmas decorations, dusty photo albums, and the tools Daniel once used to fix everything that broke. I rarely went down there. It was too quiet, too full of echoes. But upstairs, life went on. My daughter, Claire, was the bright one, always reading, always questioning the world around her. She had a sharp mind, a big heart, and a temper she inherited from her father. She became a teacher, ironically the same profession I once dreamed of before motherhood took over. My son, Michael, was quieter, a gentle boy with an artist's soul. He used to draw for hours on end, superheroes, cityscapes, and once a portrait of our family he taped to the fridge for years. He worked odd jobs after college, never found his thing, but I told myself he'd get there eventually. They were good kids, imperfect, yes, but kind. At least that's what I wanted to believe. After Daniel's death, the three of us clung to each other like survivors of a shipwreck. But grief has a strange way of changing people. It doesn't just make you sad, it reshapes you in silence, pulling you apart thread by thread until you don't even notice how far you've drifted. Claire stopped calling as often. She buried herself in work, saying it helped her not think too much. Michael, on the other hand, spent more and more time at home. He said he was looking after me, but I began to wonder if he was hiding from something instead. Still, I didn't question it. I was just grateful to have one of them close. The first odd thing happened about a year after Daniel passed. I came home early from visiting a friend, and I heard voices in the basement. Michael's voice, low and urgent, and another one I didn't recognize, male, rough, almost threatening. When I called down, the voices stopped immediately. Michael came up the stairs a minute later, pale and shaky, holding a box of old books. He said he was just cleaning up and playing music on his phone. I believed him, or maybe I wanted to believe him. From that day on, the basement became his territory. He locked the door for safety reasons, said he was organizing tools and didn't want me to trip over things. It sounded reasonable enough. Claire noticed too. One night, during dinner, she said, "Mom, have you been downstairs lately? Mike's got something going on down there." I laughed it off. "Your brother's finally cleaning up after 20 years, and you're suspicious of that?" But the look she gave me stayed with me long after she left that night. In the years that followed, little things began to stack up like puzzle pieces I couldn't quite fit together. Packages arriving in Michael's name that he quickly hid in the basement, late-night car rides, the faint hum of machinery when the house was quiet. Once I caught a glimpse through the slightly open basement door, a soft blue light flickering against the concrete walls. It looked like computer screens, maybe cameras. When I asked, Michael smiled tightly and said, "It's just a project, Mom. Don't worry about it." I didn't press further because pressing meant prying, and prying meant I might find something I couldn't handle. That's what love does. It blinds you gently, with kindness. Claire eventually moved out completely, got married to a man named Jeff, had a little girl named Ella. I adored them both. But whenever she visited, she looked at Michael with that same quiet suspicion. Once, after dinner, I caught them arguing in the living room. Claire's voice was sharp. "Mike, this isn't healthy. You can't keep doing this." And his reply, colder than I'd ever heard, "I don't understand what you're doing. Stay out of it." I asked what was wrong, but Claire brushed it off with a brittle smile. "Nothing, Mom, just a sibling thing." I should have known then. I should have gone down those stairs myself that very night. But love makes excuses, especially for your own blood. Then came the winter storm. The pipes froze, and the basement flooded slightly. Michael panicked, not because of the water, but because of what it might touch. He spent the entire night down there, moving boxes, setting up fans. He didn't even let me peek in to help. The next morning, he was gone. Left a note saying he'd gone to pick up supplies. He didn't return for 2 days. That was when I called Claire. She arrived in under an hour, wrapped in her thick winter coat, her eyes already knowing more than she would admit. "Mom, don't go downstairs, okay? Just wait for Mike." Her tone chilled me. "Claire, what's going on? What's he doing down there?" She hesitated, then whispered, "It's better if you don't know yet." That sentence haunted me for weeks. Life went back to its uneasy rhythm. Claire stopped visiting as often. Michael kept mostly to himself. And I, like any mother trying to keep the peace, pretended it was normal. Until the day the plumber came. It was a Tuesday morning, cold and drizzly. The kitchen sink had been leaking for weeks, and I finally called someone to fix it. A kind, middle-aged man named Rob. While working under the sink, he asked if he could check the main valve in the basement. I hesitated. Michael wasn't home. The basement was locked, but Rob was polite and insistent. It would only take a minute, he said. The key was in the drawer. I almost didn't give it to him. But something, a whisper of curiosity, maybe guilt, made me hand it over. As he descended the stairs, I felt an unease settle in my stomach, a silence that wasn't ordinary, a tension in the air I couldn't explain. Minutes passed, then I heard him call my name, his voice low, uncertain. "Ma'am, you might want to see this." And that was the beginning of the end. Because what Rob found down there wasn't just a hidden secret. It was the truth about who my children had become. And standing there at the top of those stairs, I realized the worst kind of heartbreak isn't when your children leave you. It's when they're right there in front of you and you no longer recognize them. I took one hesitant step down those stairs, my heart pounding like it did the day I gave birth to them, terrified, uncertain, full of love and fear all at once. Whatever waited below, I knew one thing for sure. Once I saw it, there'd be no going back. I still remember the sound of my own heartbeat echoing in my ears as I followed the plumber down the stairs. Every creak of those wooden steps felt heavier than the last, each one whispering, "Don't do it." The basement light flickered when Rob flipped the switch. A cold, metallic smell hit me first, something sharp and electric, not at all like the musty scent of old cardboard and dust I remembered. Then I saw it. The room I once knew, the cluttered space filled with Daniel's tools, the Christmas ornaments, the old treadmill, was gone. In its place stood a maze of computers, cables, and monitors glowing a faint blue. Wires snaked across the floor like veins. Boxes lined the wall, each labeled with dates and numbers I didn't understand. "Your son did all this?" Rob asked, stepping carefully between cords. I don't know," I whispered. He moved toward one of the screens, tilting his head. "Looks like a surveillance setup. Cameras, maybe recording equipment." The words didn't make sense. Cameras? For what? Why? Then I noticed the photographs pinned on the corkboard behind the main desk. Not random faces, familiar ones, neighbors, family, even me. There were notes under some photos scribbled in red pen. Claire, 4:15 p.m., argument with Jeff. Mom, moved jewelry box, 10:03 a.m. House across the street, unmarked van, twice this week. My skin went cold. This wasn't just a hobby. This was obsession, monitoring, watching. Maybe he's doing research But he didn't finish. He'd found something else. In the corner, a small metal locker sat half open. Inside were files, dozens of them, receipts, papers, hard drives, and then a folder marked with Claire's name. My hands trembled as I reached for it. Inside were printouts, bank statements, photos of her husband, her home, her child, notes scribbled in red pen. He's lying to her. Find proof. I stumbled back, dizzy. My son, my quiet, gentle son, was spying on his sister. I could barely form words. Why would he... Before I could finish, I heard the front door slam upstairs. Heavy steps started. Then Michael's voice. "Mom? You down there?" My stomach dropped. Rob looked at me nervously. Maybe I should... But Michael was already halfway down the stairs before he could finish. He froze when he saw us. His face turned white, his eyes flicking between me and the computer screens. Then the anger hit. "What are you doing here?" he shouted, voice trembling, not with fear, but betrayal. "You had no right." "Michael," I said softly, stepping forward, "what is all this? It's nothing. You weren't supposed to see... nothing." I pointed toward the photos, the wires, the mess. "You've turned our home into a command center. You've been watching people, your sister." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "You don't understand, Mom. You don't see what's happening out there. Claire's in danger. I'm protecting her." "Protecting her?" My voice cracked. "By invading her life? By hiding this from us?" He didn't answer. His chest heaved, his hands shaking as he unplugged one of the computers. Rob quietly excused himself, muttering something about giving us privacy. As soon as he left, Michael collapsed onto a stool, burying his face in his hands. "I didn't want you to know," he said, "because once you did, you'd think I was crazy. But I'm not. I swear, Mom, I found something." His voice was trembling, not defiant, but desperate. The way a child sounds when he's begging you to believe his version of the truth. "What did you find?" I asked, keeping my tone soft. He looked up at me with wild eyes. "Jeff, Claire's husband, he's not who he says he is. He's been stealing from her, from you, from Dad's account. I have proof. It's all here." I froze. He turned to one of the monitors and pulled up a video, security footage, grainy, late at night. It showed Jeff entering a bank, talking to someone behind a counter, handing over documents. Michael zoomed in on a piece of paper. "See that?" he said, pointing. "That's Dad's account number, the one he opened before he died." My mind raced. Could it be true? Was Jeff really stealing from us? Or had Michael fallen down some delusional rabbit hole of half-truths and paranoia? "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. "Because you wouldn't believe me," he said bitterly. "No one ever does." Something inside me cracked then, not out of anger, but sadness. My boy had been drowning in this darkness for months, maybe years, convinced he was the only one who saw the danger. "Michael," I said softly, reaching for him, "you need help. You can't live like this." He flinched away. "You think I'm crazy too." "No, I think you're scared." He shook his head, tears glinting in his eyes. "You don't understand, Mom. It's not just Jeff. There's more. I've been watching everyone. Someone's been watching us." That sentence stopped me cold. Before I could respond, the basement door creaked open again. Claire's voice floated down. "Mom? Michael? What's going on?" Michael's entire body stiffened. When Claire reached the bottom of the stairs and saw the screens, the photos, her own face staring back at her from the corkboard, she went pale. "Oh my God," she whispered, "you've been spying on me." "Claire, wait," Michael started, but she cut him off, fury shaking her voice. "No, you wait. Do you have any idea what this looks like? You've lost it, completely lost it." The air between them snapped like glass. I tried to speak, to calm them both, but the words tangled in my throat. Years of unspoken tension, grief, guilt, resentment, all boiled over in that single moment. Claire pointed toward me, her eyes wet. "Mom, you knew, didn't you? You let him do this?"
No, I cried. I didn't know. Not until today. Michael slammed his hand against the desk, startling us both. You don't get it. Jeff isn't who you think he is. He's lying to you. Claire's voice broke. He's my husband, Michael, not your enemy. Silence. Then Michael whispered, barely audible, You'll see. When it's too late, you'll see. That night, after Claire stormed out and Michael locked himself in his room, I sat in the dark kitchen staring at the family photo on the wall, the four of us, smiling, long before everything fractured. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know which child I believed.
The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. In Michael's handwriting, it said, "Don't trust Claire. Don't go into the basement again. They're watching." And suddenly, I realized whatever this was, it wasn't over. It was only just beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in the house, the ticking of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the groan of the floorboards, felt amplified, like the house itself was trying to whisper something I couldn't yet understand. Michael's note sat on the kitchen counter where I had left it, its words looping in my mind. Don't trust Claire. Don't go into the basement again. They're watching. I must have read it 100 times, each time trying to decide whether it was the warning of a frightened son or the ramblings of someone losing touch with reality. By morning, I was no closer to an answer. When Claire called, I almost didn't pick up, but guilt won. Her voice on the other end was tight and brittle. "Mom, are you okay?" "Yes," I said softly, though it wasn't true. There was a pause. "Listen, I'm sorry for how I yelled last night. I didn't expect to see that. I don't know what's happening to him." I sighed. "He says he's trying to protect you." Claire let out a sad laugh. "Protect me? By spying on me? By building a war zone in your basement?" "I don't know what to believe anymore," I admitted. "Then let me handle it. I'll talk to Jeff. We'll figure this out. Just stay out of it for now, okay?" But something in her tone didn't sit right. It was too calm, too practiced. And when she hung up, I noticed something strange on the caller ID. The number wasn't her cell. It was a landline. From Jeff's office. My heart sank. Why was she calling me from his workplace? I spent the rest of the morning pacing between the kitchen and the window, unable to focus. I wanted to believe Claire. I wanted to believe Michael. But faith is fragile when it's stretched between two people you love who can't stand each other. I told myself I wouldn't go back to the basement. But mothers have instincts, and mine wouldn't quiet down. So I waited until noon when the house was silent and Michael was still asleep upstairs. Then, with trembling hands, I took the spare key from the drawer and went down. The basement was colder that day. Still, the blue light from the screens glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I walked past the corkboard, past the stacks of folders, until I reached the metal locker again. This time, I opened a different folder, one with my name on it. Inside were copies of my bank statements, my medical records, even letters I'd thrown away years ago. Notes written in Michael's handwriting. "Mom's behavior is different lately. Claire visits less often. Possible connection, Jeff." My stomach turned. It wasn't just about Claire. He'd been tracking me, too. But then I noticed something taped to the inside of the locker door. An envelope, unmarked. Inside were photos, grainy, dark, taken from outside the house. The first showed me sitting in the living room, reading. the next walking to the mailbox. And then one more. Claire, standing in the backyard, talking to a man who wasn't Jeff. They were close, too close. I felt my pulse quicken. Could Michael have been right? Was Claire hiding something too? I sat there, torn between disbelief and dread. If this was true, if my daughter was having an affair, it explained why she wanted Michael to stop watching. But if it wasn't, then Michael had completely lost his mind. I didn't know which version scared me more. I was still staring at the photos when I heard footsteps above. Heavy, purposeful. Michael. I quickly tucked the photos back into the folder and turned off the main monitor, just as he came down the stairs. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his hair disheveled. "You're down here again," he said quietly. Not angry this time, just tired. "I needed answers," I said. He nodded slowly, almost sadly. "And did you find them?" I hesitated. "I found pictures of me, of Claire, of our home." His jaw tightened. "Then you know." "What do you know, Michael?" I asked, voice trembling. "That we're being watched," he said, stepping closer. "That it's not just me losing it. Someone's been inside this house, Mom. In the walls, in the wiring. I found cameras." "Cameras?" He pointed to the pipes along the ceiling. "There, and in the vents, tiny lenses. They're feeding to something outside. I've been trying to trace it." I looked up, heart pounding. I couldn't see anything, but the fear in his voice was real. "Why didn't you call the police?" He gave a bitter laugh. "And tell them what? That the walls are spying on us? They'd lock me up." I wanted to dismiss it, to tell him it was paranoia, but a small part of me hesitated, because last week, when I was alone, I heard clicking noises in the vents. I thought it was mice, but what if it wasn't? That night, I barely spoke to him. We ate in silence, the air heavy with things we couldn't say. After he went upstairs, I sat in the dark living room staring at the vent above the fireplace. The faintest glint of metal caught my eye. I stood on a chair and looked closer, and there it was, a tiny black dot. It looked like a screw, but when I leaned in, I saw a lens. My heart dropped. Michael wasn't imagining it. I climbed down, shaking, and picked up the phone to call Claire. She answered on the second ring. "Claire, listen," I said breathlessly. "Michael was right. There are cameras. Someone's watching the house." But her response was strange. Calm. Too calm.
"Mom," she said softly, "don't worry about it. Just stay with Michael. Don't go near the basement." "What are you talking about? Claire, there's—" "Please, Mom," she interrupted, voice suddenly sharp. "Just do what I say." And before I could ask anything more, she hung up. I stood there, staring at the phone, my hands trembling. For years, I thought I knew my children, their hearts, their fears, their kindness. But now, standing in that same house we built together, I wasn't sure I knew any of them. Was Michael the paranoid one? Or was Claire hiding something darker? And if someone was watching us, who were they watching for? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house made me flinch. At 3:12 a.m., I heard the basement door open. Soft footsteps. Then Michael's voice whispering to someone. Except this time, the voice that answered him wasn't his own. I didn't know what woke me, maybe the wind, maybe my own restless heart. But when I sat up, the digital clock read 3:12 a.m. The house was still and dark, yet something felt different. A soft creak floated up from the kitchen, then another. I slipped out of bed and crept to the landing. From the top of the stairs, I could see a faint glow spilling out from the crack beneath the basement door. Michael. And then, faint but unmistakable, another voice. Low, male. Not a recording. Someone was down there with him. My blood turned to ice. I crept down the stairs, careful to avoid the spots that squeaked. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure they'd hear it. I pressed my ear to the basement door. Michael was whispering urgently, "I'm telling you, they know something. My mom's been down here." The other voice was calm, almost cold. "It doesn't matter. We're almost done. Just keep her out of it a little longer." "She's my mother," Michael hissed. "I can't keep lying to her." "You'll do what's necessary," the man said. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't stand there any longer. I pushed the door open. Both of them spun around. Michael stood in the middle of the basement, pale and stricken. Across from him, half hidden behind a stack of crates, stood a man in his late 30s, broad-shouldered, wearing a black jacket, his face shadowed by the blue glow of the monitors. For a heartbeat, none of us moved. "Mom," Michael said hoarsely, "you're supposed to be asleep." "I could say the same to you," I whispered. "Who is this?" The stranger stepped forward slowly. "Mrs. Evans, my name's Paul." He extended a hand as though we were at a polite dinner party. I didn't take it. "Why are you in my house? What's going on?" Michael's hands were shaking. "Mom, please, just go back upstairs." "No," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "Not this time. Tell me the truth." Paul looked at Michael. "He deserves to know." Michael's shoulders slumped. He sank onto the stool, his face buried in his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "I wasn't just spying, Mom. I was working with Paul. He's an investigator." My stomach lurched. "An investigator? For what?"
Paul stepped in. "Your daughter's husband, Jeff, is under federal suspicion. Fraud, money laundering. We've been building a case for months. Michael volunteered to help us, monitor transactions, gather information. We couldn't do it without someone inside." I stared at him, my mind a swirl of disbelief. "Inside? This is my home, not a crime scene." Paul's gaze was steady. "We never meant to drag you into this. Michael swore you wouldn't be involved." I turned to my son. "You were spying on your sister because you thought you were saving her?" Tears welled in his eyes. "Not just saving her, saving you. Dad's account, the money he left us, just been draining it slowly, moving it through shell companies. Paul found the trail, but we needed proof. That's why I set all this up." I staggered back a step. "Oh my God!" Suddenly, all of it, the folders, the cameras, the paranoia, shifted into focus. It wasn't madness. It was desperation. "You should have told me," I whispered. Michael shook his head. "I wanted to, but the less you knew, the safer you were." I sank into a chair, my hands trembling. "Claire doesn't know?" "No," Paul said. "And we're running out of time. Jeff's about to make his final transfer. If we don't stop it, everything, her house, your savings, will be gone." I pressed a hand to my forehead. The room felt smaller, heavier. "You're telling me my son-in-law is stealing from us and my son is running a surveillance operation from my basement?" Michael's voice broke. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know how else to protect you." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream. But instead, I felt a strange mixture of grief and pride. Grief that he'd carried this alone. Pride that he'd done it for us. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. Paul exchanged a look with Michael. "We need to lure Jeff here. One final meeting. Get him on record. After that, it's over." "And Claire?" Michael's eyes darkened. She's already suspicious. If she shows up, it could ruin everything. I swallowed hard. She's my daughter. I'm not lying to her again. Paul's tone was gentle but firm. Mrs. Evans, if you tell her before we're ready, Jeff could run, and then none of you will be safe. The weight of his words settled over me. My family, my children, were already splintering, and now I was being asked to choose between them. When I finally went upstairs, dawn was breaking. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the window, watching the sky turn pale gray. Claire texted me, "Mom, are you okay? Can I come by today?" I stared at the message for a long time before replying, "Maybe later, not today." My thumb hovered over the screen, wanting to say more. I want to tell her everything, but I didn't. Because now I knew the truth, and the truth was heavier than any lie. That evening, Michael didn't eat. He stayed downstairs, preparing something on his monitors, whispering into a headset. I stood at the top of the stairs, listening, my heart aching. I could hear fragments of his conversation. "Tomorrow night, he'll come. Just make sure she's gone." She, meaning Claire. I thought of my daughter's face, pale with anger and confusion when she saw the basement. I thought of my son, hunched over his screens like a soldier at war. And for the first time, I wondered if either of them could be saved from this. At midnight, I tiptoed back down to the basement one last time. Michael had fallen asleep at the desk, his head resting on his folded arms. The monitors flickered with lines of code, emails, bank transfers, all the proof he'd collected. I reached out and brushed his hair back like I used to when he was small. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I should have protected you from all of this." On one of the screens, a window was open, a live feed from outside the house. A dark car idled at the curb, headlights off. I frowned. Another car. And another. 3 cars in total, lined up quietly in the dark. The feed showed a man stepping out of the first one. Even in the grainy light, I recognized him. Jeff! My heart stopped. I didn't know what was about to happen, whether Michael's plan would save us or destroy us. But as I stood there in the cold glow of those screens, watching my son-in-law approach our home, I knew one thing. The real danger was no longer hidden in the basement. It was walking up my front steps. The night Jeff came to my house, the world felt unnaturally quiet. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. I stood frozen by the basement door, staring at the monitor that showed him walking up the path. He moved with the calm arrogance of a man who believed the world still belonged to him. His hand was in his pocket, maybe for his phone, maybe something worse. I reached for Michael's shoulder and shook him awake. "Michael," I whispered urgently, "he's here." He jerked upright, eyes wild with confusion. "What? Who?" "Jeff," I said, "outside, now." He shot to his feet, scanning the monitors. "No, he wasn't supposed to come until tomorrow night." "Well, he's early," I said, my voice shaking. "What do we do?" For a moment, my son stood there, torn between panic and purpose. Then his jaw tightened. "We stick to the plan." He grabbed a small black device from the desk, something like a recorder, and stuffed it into his hoodie pocket. "Stay upstairs, Mom, please." "Michael, please." His tone was firm now, older somehow. "If this goes wrong, I need you safe." But how could any mother stay safe when her children were walking straight into danger? I followed him anyway. We met Jeff in the kitchen. The back door creaked open, and there he stood in the doorway, half lit by the porch light. His smile was sharp and false. "Well," he said smoothly, What a surprise. Burning the midnight oil, are we? Michael didn't answer. He just stared at him, silent and cold. I could feel the tension crackling between them. Years of family dinners, of fake smiles and forced laughter, all simmering to the surface. Jeff looked around. Where's Claire? At home, Michael said. You wanted to see me, not her. Jeff chuckled softly. Of course I did. You've been quite the busy bee, haven't you? He took a step forward, lowering his voice. You really thought I wouldn't notice you sniffing around my accounts? You think I don't have people who tell me things? Michael didn't flinch. You're stealing from our family, Jeff. You used Dad's name, his business connections. You drained Mom's savings. You lied to all of us. Jeff's smirk vanished. Careful, boy. You're making accusations you can't prove. Michael reached into his pocket and held up the small recorder. Then you won't mind clearing it up, will you? Tell me I'm wrong. On record. Jeff's eyes darkened. You really are your father's son. He stepped closer. Too close. Always playing the hero. Always thinking the world's watching. But it's not. Nobody cares, Michael. Nobody ever did. I took a step forward, my voice trembling. Stop it! Both of you! This is madness! Jeff turned to me, his smile returning, slick and poisonous. Oh, Mother, you poor thing. You think he's doing this for you? He's doing it for himself, because he hates me, because he's jealous. Michael's hands clenched into fists. Jealous of what? A thief. A liar. Jeff's voice dropped. Dangerous now. Jealous that I gave Claire the life you never could? Jealous that she chose me over this sad little family circus? Don't talk about your wife that way, I snapped, surprising even myself. His eyes flicked toward me, cold, assessing. You've been poking around too, haven't you? That plumber? You think I didn't know? The plumber. My stomach tightened. So that's how this started. Jeff took another step forward, his hand slipping deeper into his jacket pocket. I could hear the faint crackle of Michael's breathing beside me. Then headlights flashed through the kitchen window, bright, blinding. Paul. In that instant, Jeff's smirk vanished. He spun toward the door. Michael lunged at him, grabbing his arm, and the two of them crashed against the counter. The recorder skidded across the floor. Stop! I screamed. Please stop! They didn't hear me. The struggle was fierce and fast. A chair toppled, glass shattered. Jeff shoved Michael hard against the refrigerator, sending magnets scattering. Then came the sirens. The sound split through the night like a judgment. Jeff froze, his chest heaving. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Paul burst through the back door shouting, "Federal agents, step away!" Jeff turned, too slow this time. Two men followed Paul inside, and in seconds, Jeff was face down on the tile, his hands pinned behind him. The recorder lay between them, blinking red. Michael slumped against the counter, shaking, pale, but alive. Paul gave me a quick nod. It's over. But it didn't feel like it was over. Not yet. The days that followed blurred together. Police reports, phone calls, Claire's tears. She couldn't believe it at first. None of us could. Jeff had built his empire on lies, fake investments, shell accounts, promises that never existed. And through it all, he'd funneled money from the people he loved most. The investigation exposed everything. The house, the cars, even the savings he'd hidden in our name. It all unraveled. Michael stayed quiet through the whole thing. He never once said, "I told you so." He just sat beside me at the kitchen table, staring at his cold coffee, shoulders heavy with exhaustion. Claire didn't speak to him for weeks. She blamed him for destroying her life, and maybe in her eyes, he had. But one morning she came to the house. Her face was pale and swollen from crying. She stood in the doorway like a child again. "I saw the files," she said softly. "You were right." Michael looked up but said nothing. She turned to me then, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Mom, how did we get here? How did we let him do this to us?" I didn't have an answer. All I could do was pull her into my arms. Weeks later, when the house was quiet again, I went down to the basement one last time. The machines were gone, the screens are dark. But in that empty space, I felt something strange. Peace, maybe. For the first time in months, the house felt like mine again. I stood there for a long moment, tracing the spot on the wall where the wires had been. The secrets had been stripped away, leaving behind only silence. Michael's voice came softly from behind me. "Mom, you okay?" I turned and smiled through my tears. "I think so." He walked over and stood beside me. The light from the small window fell across his face, older now, harder, but full of quiet strength. "He just wanted to keep you safe," he said. "I know, and you did." We stood there together, in the same place where everything had fallen apart, and somehow had come back together again.
Sometimes it takes the darkest secrets to reveal the kind of children you've truly raised. Not perfect ones, but brave ones. And maybe that's enough. It's strange, isn't it? How one discovery can split your life into before and after. Before that day, I thought I understood what it meant to be a mother. I thought love was about keeping peace, smoothing edges, pretending everything was fine even when it wasn't. But after the truth came out, after the plumber's flashlight exposed what my heart had been too afraid to see, I realized that love isn't blind, it's brave. The weeks that followed felt like grieving. Grieving the family I thought I had, the children I thought I knew, and the woman I used to be. But grief has a strange way of clearing space for truth. Claire found her strength again. She started rebuilding her life piece by piece, moving back into her own home. The last time I saw her, she was sitting on the porch, holding a cup of tea, watching the sunrise. She looked tired, yes, but free. Michael took a job out of town. He said he needed space to breathe, to start over. I understood. Sometimes healing means stepping away from the places where the pain was born. As for me, I stayed in this house. The same walls that once hid secrets now hold silence and memory. I walk past that basement door every morning, and sometimes I still pause there. Not out of fear anymore, but as a reminder. Because that basement wasn't just where I discovered what my children were hiding, it's where I discovered myself. I used to think that being a mother meant protecting your children from the world. But maybe it also means protecting them from their own mistakes by refusing to look away, no matter how painful the truth is. The hardest part isn't finding out that your children are capable of secrets. It's realizing how long you ignored the signs because you loved them too much to believe they could ever lie to you. But love without honesty isn't love. It's an illusion. And as painful as this journey was, it taught me something I'll never forget. You can't build a family in silence. You can't heal what you refuse to face. And sometimes the truth, no matter how dark, sets not only your children free, but you too. The house feels lighter now. The air doesn't hum with secrets anymore. And though there are scars, emotional, invisible ones, they've become part of our story. I still think about that plumber sometimes, how an ordinary man doing an ordinary job ended up uncovering the extraordinary cracks in my family.
how fate uses strangers to shine light on the places we've kept in the dark for too long. Maybe that's the lesson life keeps trying to teach us. Truth always finds a way out, whether through a crack in the wall, a creaking basement door, or the trembling hands of a mother finally ready to see. And though I'll never forget what I saw that day, I've stopped asking why. Now I ask, what comes next?
If this story touched your heart or made you reflect on the hidden truths families sometimes carry, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever discovered something that changed how you saw the people you love? Share your story in the comments. I read every one of them. And if you believe in stories that remind us of the strength, pain, and beauty that live inside family bonds, make sure to subscribe to Grandma's Silent Truths, where every tale pulls back another layer of the human heart. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and click the bell so you never miss the next story. Because sometimes one story can change the way you see your own.